With expertise in the social and ecological sciences, she merges qualitative research methods with artistic and craft-based practices rooted in nature. Through her proprietary methodology, Artful Transcendence, and interdisciplinary practice uniting ecological psychology, qualitative research, and artistic craft to catalyze healing and connection, she is dedicated to transforming personal and social landscapes through creativity, presence, and mytho-poetic ecological wisdom. Without further ado, Shawndel.
You all bless me by being here today. Thank you so much. I'd like to give thanks for everything that went right in all of our lives to be here right now, healthy, smiling, with food on the table. So, I haven't run through this, even though my mind has been iterating all of the things I want to say, so if it's a little bumpy at spots, just give me a little bit of grace. So, for those of you who don't know, or some of you who don't know as much as there is to me, I'm an environmental psychologist, also a social scientist. My work and my field bridges lots of disciplines. And we consider context in relation to people, so whether it's the culture of an organization or a society, or if it's the physical spaces that we inhabit, that we build, anything. And we look at time, we look at eras that people exist in. So essentially, where psychology looks inside the individual and between people, we look at everywhere people are, as well as what's in the person and what's happening between people. I recently encountered the label socially engaged craft, and one of the residents that was just here, Holly Hessian, she was an OG in socially engaged craft, so it was such a gift to overlap with her, and that always speaks to Michelle's magic. She always manages to put the right people in the same room. Such a gift, and some of this work has been inspired by the conversations that Holly and I had. So I'm also a Black Artisan Crafter on Instagram, and I love that label because look at it, it's awesome. I'm a spiritual teacher, teaching artist, master student of life, and a lover of humans. I recently realized the Standing Nation is just paying attention to everything we do, and out here we have millions of people watching us. So it's important to be in integrity. And all non-human animal kin, as Jenny has noticed, I've been saving a lot of spiders. They keep getting themselves in trouble. So my gratitude goes to Michelle and the mystery donor who gifted me this opportunity. I am so grateful. I've been able to bring together my process, which has been kind of siloed up until now and more focused on interest rather than all of the practices I have as a researcher as well as an artist or crafter to bring together. So this time has been invaluable. And Craig Garden, is a glamping environment. I love camping, and so it's, the outdoors will always kind of push you to your limit. You see yourself, and then you grow past it, and so I always become more here, so thank you. My fellow residents, they have seen some wily, gnarly pieces of me, and I'm so grateful that they've given me grace. As I've been going through this project, I've been having my own transformation in response to people's responses to the project, and so I am just so grateful that they made the space for me to come back around, be a little bit more stable and friendly, and receive me. My participants, I'm calling them my beautiful men of devotion and honor, some of whom are here today. Aaron, Brendan, Chris, Dan King, who's actually not here. Dan Morrison, Garrison, James, John, Mikey, Ryan, and those who are queued up next. So we have John Brown Lives, Martha Swan, Anna Forsman, unyielding, steadfast support. They've seen the cracks, and it's a beautiful thing that they still stay here with me. Transformation agents would be my ancestors who guide me through every single step. I do none of this alone, though I am quite alone in this world. I am always surrounded. And my direct bloodline ancestors, my mother Barbara and my father George, who you will hear more about in a moment. They show up with a lot of the jokes that I make, as well as material support. So this project starts in a couple different places. I've found that artistic process for me is going through the course of life, things resonate, and then I kind of keep note in the back of my mind, and then they converge. So I'll start with my father, and it works out really nicely that Jenny also started talking about her father. We have some dovetails that just kind of worked out. So my father, his name was George, and he died in 2019, as did my mother. I was at my father's funeral when my mother died. And George, I used to say he was Georgie Porgy, kissed the girls and made them cry. He was quite the ladies' man. He was a hottie, and he knew it. And so he didn't really know how to stick around. And so his absence, I think, is actually what's made me tune in to wanting to see the beauty that men bring, because I didn't get to see it from him. Everybody else did. And then we have John, who is my ace boon coon, as we say. This picture that we have here of him with his hand, I did an illustration last year, and when we got to the hand, I actually got quite fascinated because I am into palmistry, and so I've started collecting images of depictions of his hand. So there's that one piece there, and there are some people that have things to say about the statue at the farm, but I personally love it, and the hands are magnificent. And then we have on the bottom right, a boat crafter, Nate Atkinson. I was watching his Instagram, and his hands were really, really nice as he moved through the materials. And I think that was a piece that brought it all together. I was seeing this, type of softness with very hard materials, and so it kind of came together. So, one of the earliest moments where I started thinking about craft critically was an exhibition at the Schomburg in Harlem, where they had an exhibition of craft that had been supportive of slavery. And I'd never thought about, wow, if the blacksmiths hadn't said yes, my people would be free. And so it made me, I actually attended another talk that looked at textile companies, so Brooks Brothers, and they clothed people who were enslaved in the house in the fine wear. So that extends the thought to boats. It extends to which of course then means woodworkers of various kinds. We have textiles, we have ropes, sail making, various crafts that we just don't really think about in this critical way. So it made me think about the everyday ways that we can resist moral tyranny. People have asked me why white men, and I said, we are in the Adirondacks. Also, just thinking about that sociocultural history that I just mentioned, and then this present moment that we're in America, and we also see this white supremacy popping up in Europe in a different way, this new version of it. And so we have, I'm a lover of craft and trade, very into different processes, materials, and techniques, and so it's really a gift to get to talk to people about their work, how they do the things, and what they're doing with them, and what they're using. And you may have seen in the image, the signature image, the hands of the furniture maker resting. There's something in that picture for me that is, and it's kind of like what I saw with Nate, the softness, and it made me think about the ways that men are prevented from being soft in our culture, or if they are, then we kind of railroad them into being soft the way women are soft, whether it's in communication or, anything, touch anything. So I wanted to see the ways that men be doing what they do in codified masculine things, do softness. What does that look like? And so this is also the first step in the larger scope of my work. So 3%, I don't know if you guys have heard this. I have a book called Acts of Resistance, I think. And it talks about socially engaged craft. And the author presents data where all major social revolutions have happened when 3% of the population rises up. And so those of us in subjugated groups, we're doing what we can, but we need white men. So we need 3% of everybody. And one of the things I realized with this project is compassion is the first step. how do you look at everyone with loving eyes? How do you receive and how do you give? So 3%, great men of courage. Those of you that know my truck, my GMC is my great man of courage. So compassion, connection, and courage, those three ideals are what is filtering through my work with men. So with the status of white men, right? People have this monolith projection, and it does not make sense. Even if you love a white man, right, there's still this, why them, I couldn't do it. And I've had to come up with responses to this that I understand everyone has their reasons for disliking whomever they dislike, but this study is of men who are gorgeous individuals. And so it is not these people like we see here. I'm gonna play a quick clip from Dan Morrison, who is working on a film about Ida B. Wells. And as I was in Connecticut working on my truck, John Brown kind of directs everything that I do. So he took me to his birth town, and sitting with Dan, I found out that he's not just a filmmaker, he's also a builder, carpenter. And I was like, of course you are, because it has to align, right? So he showed me this movie. The X is not to the movie, it's a great film, but the X is to the type of men that are depicted. Oops. Oh, it doesn't play. How would I make it play without it advancing, do you know?
Can you hover over the play?
No, it's just a little text box. Maybe if I escape and we go from this way.
You might need to just pull up.
Instruction to the Senate investigative committees that went down south to investigate political violence.
18.
So there's a huge record of Black women testifying to abuse and rape by Southern white men.
Must be right there. I was thinking we could pull that.
This is devotion at work. This is his spare time. He's working on this film.
Into abuse and rape by Southern white men.
The miscegenation laws of the South only operated against the legitimate unions of the race. They leave the white men free to seduce all the colored girls he can. But it is death to the colored man who yields to force and advances of a similar attraction in a white woman.
So, if you couldn't hear, the person playing Ida B. Wells is talking about the difficulties of sexual violence under slavery, Black men and Black women that they experienced. These are not the men that I'm interacting with. And so I said to a couple of my guys who were here that I found myself being an inadvertent advocate for the humanity of white men. And I wasn't expecting that to be the point of the project, but you know, it actually wound up made me realize I don't just do art, I do healing, I do community engagement, I do transformation of ideas and such. And so the resistance that I experienced was hard, but also super valuable.
Structure.
So I'll talk about this later. So some of my participants are here today, and just very generally by trade and location, a lot of ADK people, one Torrington who you just saw. So we have builders, carpenters, farmers, one builder who was a farmer, sacred site groundskeeper, guideboat crafter, the last trained in the original techniques from the originator. I think he's second generation. Blacksmith, who's not here, another boat crafter, basket weaver, furniture maker. And I'll be continuing to recruit for some time. We'll see when the project feels complete. So my methods were to visit people where they were, where they do the work. So for some people, I couldn't visit them in their workshops, so the market was one place, but some people did work at the market, so that was awesome to be able to work with a couple of people each in the same day and have really good quality interactions. But I love going to the work sites, I love going to the farms, and of course visiting the workshops, the studios is also amazing because I love tools. What did Jenny say? Fire and what was it?
Fire and knives.
Fire and knives. I love the same thing. So I was amateur paparazzi. Everyone was very kind to let me snap photographs. I know it was gonna, you know, it could jangle the nerves a little bit to have somebody snapping pics and you don't know what they're looking at. And then with materials, I was working between clay sculpture, mold making, and hand casting. It took a while to figure out what would be the thing that would work to capture the hands. And then it developed that I included aftercare and connection as a meaningful part of what I did. I wasn't there to extract, and so I wanted to give something back. And that was my way of starting to do that. Integration when possible, so that takes a little bit of time, but then we get to the point where we can talk about what we've done and experienced. So that's a part as well. And then ongoing relationship building and tending. I'm not leaving ADK, though I do go to the Bronx, so, you know, to take care of business. But so for me, these are relationships that I plan to continue for the rest of my life. So this was a quote that I worked on. Nurturing is the act of sustaining and helping life to grow. Tenderness is the manner of that act, the softness, warmth, and sensitivity that makes care felt. Together, they turn work into devotion and hands into vessels of love. I will let you guys know, this little QR code is actually for the men. I will go back to this. Part of my work is creating retreats for men. And I think that to reach the 3% quantity of people that we need for social change, it would be really beneficial for men to be in brotherhood more often. It's really lovely when I see at work sites men being able to talk, eat, break bread together, and engage in labor that bonds them, and to have that outside of the workplace to, I guess ultimately, how do I say this? I wanted to say it polished, but I've been witnessing over the past few years being up here culturally that there's a lot of isolation where men could be more braided together. And I think in general, there's the opportunity for that braiding together to equal the strength that we need to stand up. So if we think about John Brown and his Raiders, those men lived together for a period of time. John was cooking and they were doing the domestic duties, but they bonded together and were able to find their root cause, their root reason for being involved in the cause, and stand up together despite great odds, and they made a great change. So my field school is a way to allow the sacred feminine to kind of facilitate and witness that bonding together through outdoor activity, outdoor living, craft, instruction, woodworking, blacksmithing, and developing purpose as it applies to each individual. So on the corner of each slide, you'll see a QR code. In case anyone is interested, you can sign up for more information at that link. So here we have Chris. I don't show the faces of most of my people, but this boat image really, I love it. This is a boat from 1904 that he's restoring. So I love that, the boat itself has history. It's an original, and he's one of the last people that is able to exact the original craft. So at his workshop, we looked at some materials, this piece, some of you got this flyer, there were a couple different flyers I circulated. And this is an oarlock made out of, I think he said brass. We're gonna look at a video, so I loved the way his hand moved in this one.
Wow.
Did it become? Here we have Brendan working on weaving a chair. He said that these are skills that he got as a child. I love to hear craft stories. A lot of people talk about growing up doing something with their father, and that skill gets passed on, and then it turns into a livelihood. That's a tremendous gift. It doesn't exist in all cultures, I should let you know. And here we have Garrison showing us a needle that broke. The needles go under, they do a lot of hard work, but his work is also difficult. So if you look at a basket, all of those little holes is like a forcing of a tiny metal needle through tight raffia. I think about the hands of these men that they take hits, they bear the brunt of their trade, and they continue to make beautiful things for us and places for us to live, and for us to I feel like this is, he's gathering this cilantro very tenderly. It's a bouquet, it's an offering. Washing kale. So this was Aaron. We have Steve. Mikey. Simple motions that I don't even know. I wish I had the words, and I feel that I'm a person of words, but for me it feels like there's just an energy. And I'm no photographer, so pardon the fuzziness. I was trying to be surreptitious, and they kept catching me. Here we have James. Right, these are industrial materials, a powerful drill, and then a graceful light touch on the ceiling. The juxtaposition, the strength and tenderness. And here we have Ryan talking about teaching his daughter, his 12-year-old daughter, about building, teaching her different techniques and things. The tenderness in his hands, thinking about his daughter. John, sacred site caregiver, John Brown Farm. And Dan, who was making the movie, also makes videos for builders and is working on his own projects. So his devotion is twofold in that way. So as I was watching people, I noticed how it's whole body work, right? I've never had whole body work. I've worked at zoos, I've worked on farms, I've done stuff, but not like as an occupation. And they put their whole selves into it. And I realized, like, from standing up to squatting down, these tall, robust men, it's like bowing. And so I remember I had an experience with a woman who was a spiritual advisor, and someone attended an event. It was very disruptive. And rather than castigate him, which I thought she should have done, she got on her knees and bowed in front of him. And it changed the entire energy of the whole thing. And it never left me. I was mad at her for so long. I was like, what are you doing? You're giving him power. And she was just like, just give him the stage. And he needed attention, and he received it, and he stopped. So to bow is not to diminish, but to reveal devotion as strength, the masculine turning towards reverence in action, thought, words, work, and deed. And I think these will speak for themselves. Does anyone not know what pranam means? Okay, so these are approximations I was able to work out. So literally it's bowing down, prostration, or salutation. So like Muslim people will bow, right? It's the same type of motion, depending on whatever your culture is, you're bowing to or for different reasons. In Hindi, you would pranam before the gods, gurus, parents, and elders. It's more than polite. In Nigerian culture, you bow before elders, but it's slightly different, I think. So the divine in me bows to the divine in you, which is also namaste. So here we have Dan at John Brown's birthplace. I snapped this photo because his consideration of this marker made me realize this was a moment of reverence. And on this is on John Brown's land that he grew up on for the first 5 years of his life. And a group of people built these boardwalks to go through the forest, and Dan helped build this stretch. And so he didn't know I took this either. He was just, contemplating that moment. I got to be sneaky, it was kind of fun. Here we have John. This is in the Three Sisters garden at John Brown Farm. I see that is like a namaste. These tall oak trees of builders, catching them in that moment, you know, reaching up, it just felt like obeisance, right? And then we have the pranam. It just amazed me. 80K, y'all folks have knees, okay? I did too much Afro house. I cannot keep up with y'all in the bending. So here we have another video. This is Ryan. I'm gonna go across
There
this.
was another one.
Should I take a big bite now?
Do not. Down on the ground and then up, down and up, down and up. Like, we don't think about where the insulation in our walls, how it gets there. Somebody is putting their whole body into making you warm. Also, bowing. It's so funny, like these herbs are so delicate. It has to go through handling and packaging and delivery. It's a light touch. So the process of the mold making, hand casting. Here we have a hand inside the alginate, which is like the material that dentists use to make a tooth impression. And after about 5 minutes it sets and you have to wiggle a bit to get your hand out. We had a couple moments where we thought our builders would be bucket builders for the rest of their lives. So it comes out and then we pour in plaster and that sets over an hour to however long before you pull it out. So then we have the reveal. I'm gonna let this play because it seemed like people were interested in seeing this before. It's not a pleasant feeling substance. I promise you none of them had carbuncles on their actual hands. That's just from the material. So it makes those little air bubbles. There were some limitations with the material. That one of these hands, this is Mikey's hand, had a small break in one of the fingers, and with the help of Michelle and Hannah, I was able to repair that. And then there's detailing that happens. So after we do the mold, and I would demold it separately afterwards, there's aftercare. So some of you may know the term aftercare. We have that in ethical non-monogamy and elsewhere. For this purpose, I offered it as a way to kind of close the loop on my receiving to then give, and to just offer some kindness and some salves, SALVE, to hands that do a lot of work. So magnesium oil, arnica, and it was just a little, I'm wondering if anybody felt any difference afterwards, if their hands were just miraculously pain-free. We'll find out later, no pressure. So I thought it was important, that video that I showed is actually because in people having reactions to me working with white men, nobody really had curiosity about why me. And so I think it's important that I, as a Black woman, I am of the triangle trade, Caribbean, American, right? That there's something around the ancestors that walk with me where there's repair happening just in having relationships with people. And yeah, that's that. So the next steps, I wound up giving manicures, which is actually really fun. I realized this is really satisfying. So Michelle, we're definitely doing slip casting. I realized I tried to sculpt. I have two here, and they kept coming out like cartoon hands. So yeah, Dan the blacksmith would be very upset if he saw how little this hand was. So this is me preparing to repair the finger. Yeah, my mad scientist look. Okay, so first round, the inspiring hand motions. We had Mikey with the rasp, which is one of my favorite tools in pottery. It's neat to find out that it's also used in building. And so I took the picture in my car, so that's the weird background. But I had them look at the image and try and approximate holding the object. And I found out from the owner of this company that we could cast the object and then use that cast and put it in the hand the next time around. So when we do it again, we're gonna have the objects in hand. Here we have James recreating that tender moment. And Ryan. So yeah, definitely not a sculpting project. I didn't know that hands were the hardest thing to make aside from feet. So of course Shawndel jumps in, both feet, and I was like, wow, this is extraordinarily hard and ugly. And so someone, I think it was Maya, who recently left the farm at the end of her term, but she suggested alginate and Lifesaver because it was quick, and it allowed for this great process to emerge, and I get to have this closeness. It was so great to do the touch. There are people who have yet to be cast, so they'll have their turn too. And I can't wait to have these moments. I realize that full circle is what, I don't know, it gives me my satisfaction in this whole process. So goals for the project. I would love an exhibition of these hands. I would also love to have some of these hands around Cray Garden, the hands that made these buildings in the buildings. And I'll get the opportunity to study more with Michelle, who has great knowledge around ceramics and slip casting, so that's a huge gift. I would love to be able to gift people their own slip cast hands. It's fascinating to see people interact with their hands outside of their bodies. I did my own hand, you'll see it. And I was like, wow, that's a meaty hand. I had no idea that it was so thick. And then, of course, to continue my relationships with everyone. So with the resistance, I found resistance among, I call us rainbows, Black men, Black women, white women, depending on what, people were experiencing. And when I wound up talking about it with some people, I noticed the body language would change. And so there is some expectation of denigration, I think, within white men as well, which was also kind of heartbreaking because I guess everyone's used to hearing the white men are the bad guys. And so it was, it's an unexpected moment of repair when I was just really trying to look at beautiful hands. So one of the realizations was, you know, with the problems that we're having with the othering that's taking the imagination of the quote other side, if we stop projecting onto whole groups, we stop the cycle, right? We can, it fuels itself with othering. And so if we see the individuals before us, and even if we want to other and say, there are more people like this in the world, right, than who the media projects, I think that we have some hope in being able to stop this downward spiral. And I think there's opportunity. You know, white men who are wonderful people do great things in their communities. I think that there's also the opportunity to be more obvious in your work outside of your original circles. So not enough people know of white men who do good works. Even John Brown, right? He's the terrorist, he's the madman, and he was a total martyr, both made that way and by choice, you know, the choices that he made. And so I think that there's an opportunity to take on causes and labor that supports more people that don't expect you to support them, and there'd be less resistance around why white men. I think I've said everything there. And so I wanted to give some of the men an opportunity to share. And if the room is silent, there's no pressure. It's fine if you don't want to. But these are some questions that I was interested to hear about. Like, what was it like to have me in your space or on your property? What was it like to be witnessed and photographed by me? What was your initial reaction to the description of the project? I've had some really lovely responses that really warmed my heart and kept me going, honestly. What do you think about me labeling your craft or your trade as nurturing or devotion? And has your perspective changed about your work or your role in the community since we started the project? And then for those of you who did receive the molding and aftercare, what did it feel like during, after, and what do you feel about the aftercare? What did it mean to you?
Shawndel, when you came to visit, I didn't fully have a sense of what you were doing. You talked about the project a little bit, and I didn't know where the project began or continues to go. You know, I just met you as a friend, sort of, at my aunt and uncle's house. And to be honest with you, I was completely unaware of the project through our interaction, of course, and it's only until right now that I'm getting more of a sense of it.
I'm happy you came. So what do you
But
think of
it's
this?
just natural to speak with you, so I didn't even know that's really what the different impressions.
Awesome. Now that you've heard this, does anything come to mind?
Oh yeah, it's pretty emotional, a lot of stuff.
Mm.
You know, I don't know that I could pin down anything right now that I really want to put out there, but it's definitely intense.
Mm. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just happy to hear you were just photographing the hands. I was okay with that. But yeah, I didn't feel like you were in my space. That wasn't a thing. I just felt like we were, you know, hanging out. So, yeah, that was. I didn't really get the whole grasp of what you were doing until right now. So, I know you explained it, but I'm a little thick, so. But yeah, it's neat.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't explain the fullness of it to speak to both of you because it was developing as I did it. Yeah, I originally really was like, wow, these hands are pretty. I have a hand thing. And so I was like, I'll get to look at some hands. And then it was like, well, whose hands? Where are you? Why? And it's so in social science and environmental psychology, and specifically anthropology, we have grounded theory where you kind of go out and do the work, and then the theory, the idea emerges from the labor. And so that's what I wound up doing. I didn't realize that I was doing social science until it started to become more than observation and trying to sculpt. So that's why I couldn't give you a full idea originally. And that speaks so much to who these men are, right? That I'm just, hey, I want to look at your hands. And they're like, okay, let's do it. Where do you want me? What do you need me to do? Just the willingness to serve was heart-melting.
Yeah, but you also gave a lot to the experience too. It wasn't like, I never felt like an object. It seemed like a mutual exchange. And it's a pretty big project, so now I understand why I don't think you could communicate necessarily what it was that you're asking of a participant.
You wouldn't have wanted a 1-hour presentation before I started. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Namaste. I do have some molds for you to see. We have 3 plus my own hand over in the front. And then we have my sculptures. And again, these men have big, beautiful hands, no carbuncles, and they're not tiny. There we go. Wait till I come around, get a real one. And you're welcome to eat. Let's talk and socialize.